Hey, this is part 2 if you haven't seen part 1 yet. What are you doing? Go check it out here right now. This is your official spoil. Wanted to go and check it out. However, if you have seen part 1, enjoy the rest of this video. Moments pass after Mary's death and we see Okbay holding her dead body. What we could tell them to get away from her. Just then Suzanne How bus into the lab dealing with a few of the mosque men before getting into a showdown with Mohika. She then tells me she turned the TV on downstairs. Man, why of the time late machine will now be working. This creates enough of a distraction for Okabe Bay to get the time leap he'd set on, and for Kyusu to set it up. Just as he's about a time leap we see Kurisu get shot. Also he comes to in a panic state at 5 p.m. on the same day. Okabe then frantically asked everyone where Muri is. Then after finding out that she's heading to Reduce tells them all to get out of the lab and the party's cancelled. While frantically running around trying to find the Yuri he received a phone call from Kurisu who accurately deduce is that he must have made a T.I. Me leap from the future. He tells her that she's correct, but he doesn't have the time to elaborate right now, just telling her to get far away from the lab. After finding Mary he rapidly explains that they need to get as far away from here as possible, and they need to leave now. Mayor is worried about him, but goes along regardless, making him promise to tell why he's acting this way later on. As they arrive at the train station, Okabe realizes the trains is still shut down due to the bomb threat before then getting approached and being held at gunpoint. But one of my week has been they manage to escape, but as they attempt to flee the mole Okbay is tackled to the ground. Okabe then tells me really get as far away as you can. However, as she runs down an alleyway she's once again killed off to getting hit by a car being driven by the weak Cabe manages to escape the men, then makes his way back to the lab where he performs another time leap. This time around he finds me very much quicker, but as he tries to make his way to the subway notices that are being followed. They manage to evade the men and make their way to the subway. However, as they're waiting for the train Mary again states that watches stopped working even though she is just well. And it just then Nay, the daughter of a convey's landlord, excited to see me, Yuri runs up to her wanting to give her a big hug. However, while running she trips, pushing Mary in front of the incoming train. A devastated Okabe vows to keep time leaping until he manages to save Miyuri. As he goes on each attempt he makes fails, as if fate itself is making sure that she always dies. At the exact same time, following this out of desperation, he takes more. We can say that he wants to talk to her alone. He uses one of his gadgets is a fake gun, then gets a real gun and forces Telemeric. Then we learn that her group known as Round is working for certain. Their mission was to recover the IBM 5100. But after Sun found out about the completion of the time machine and their intent to release to the public, they became a high priority. And now the target Okabe then gets knocked unconscious, but one of the backup route does, and sometime later Mary is again killed off. The time leaping Aga in Okabe begins to fall into despair over his repeated failures of saving Migliori when he is that approached by Kurisu, who gets in to reveal the enticing tuition to she. Then comes up with a plan on how they're going to fix this, priming the timely machine to go back to when it was first Cray. Ted then giving him a trigger phrase to the Carissa in the past will know that he is from the future, saying that he probably weren't needed, as she would just believe him if he said he's from the future after being sent back in time to just before the timely machine's completion. While having lunch with Kurisu he tells us that he's from 5 hours in the future. She doesn't believe him at all. He then gives the trigger phrase, which is what she wants now most of all, is her own personal fork. Embarrassed she now believes him and they go to the lab to discuss further. Does the discussing how to prevent Mary's death. Susan How approaches them dropping me bombs, telling them that in order to save Meyer they need to escape the car world line known as the Alpha Weld line, in which Mayer is destined to die and Sun is destined to take over the world. She explains they must cross the 1% divergence point into the bay to Weld lined with. The outcome might be different. She then takes Okabe and Kurisu to the radio building with a crutch satellite. It was your feels that she is the one known as John Title from the year 2036, and the satellite is her time machine. Susan How then explains how Soon was able to build a time machine and then use it to create to tell here in world in 2036, stating that she had originally planned to simply travel to 1975, require the IBM 5100 and make sure it was safe until the time was right to give it to them, but instead made a detour to 2010 in order to look for a father. She then tried to start the time machine up UT discovers that it's broken down a short time later. Susan How thinks the reason it's broken down must be due to the thunderstorm that happened the other night. Okabe realizes that it's his fault because he said that the mail order himself not to listen to her leave that night. The time machine got damaged. He then, with the help of Kurisu, leads back 2 days before the completion of the timely machine, where he gathers a lot of members and inform them all about what's been happening, showing them through the house. Time machine daughter was then tossed, with trying to fix the IME machine and the recent just that. In the meantime, this old friend finds his father using the pin badge of father gave her as a clue. Office spending the day searching around for a bit, they come across about Jamaica and offer some brief introductions. We find out that the badge apparently seems familiar to the man, and he will get back to them the next day while they're having lunch on top of the radio building. Okabe received a phone call from the badge maker, saying that he remembered something. Okabe races to him. Adult actually reaching him isn't able to get much information to the client, privacy only he was here early that day. Okabe then decides to leap back in time to confront the client directly, only to find out that was actually dollars all along, who wants to make a fake badge in order to cheer up Susan. Daughter lets him know this is a house. Time machine is only able to travel backwards in time, meaning that once you leave still never be able to see her again. The next day Dari completes time machine fully, and Mary, also noticing how well daughter wants you to help work together, pieces the puzzle, telling everyone she knows who's the house father, is explaining at this time machine was named the FG2 or 4 by Suzuha's father, which stands for Future Gadget. Me knew that her father all along was Daru's Suza. How kinda knows this and a hot to be true. And they share a tender moment before she boards the time machine, traveling back to 1975. A few hours later, Okabe Bay's landlord leaves a letter to them written by Susan Hall. In the year 2000, he explains that she once looked up to him when he was at his lowest point. In the letter, Susan Howell laments that she had failed her mission completely, as the damage at the time machine undertook from the thunderstorms too much, and as a result she developed amnesia for 24 years until the year 2000, when she suddenly remembered everything. But by that point it was far too late. Afterwards the landlord explains to the group this is all is dead from committing suicide. Okabe then blaming himself for stopping her on the night she was planning to leave, sentence over the email to stop him from following suits, are letting her use the time machine before it was of a damaged but never ending out who the father is in this new world line. Okabe learned from his landlord this is a hot had died of an illness instead of suicide, as they're all sitting in the lab. A few days later, the nail day pasta point of women you were usually dies when she then tells local base at a stopwatch H has stopped working. And again she has killed a doctor, again leaping back in time, and explained everything to Kurisu. She theorizes that since negating his initial D-mail of stopping Susie often stayed around, gave an extra day undoing the effects of the other D-mails, could bring them back to a world line. Will EY have the IBN 5100, which would let them hack into Sun. I delete all records of them on the system, and may you or you would no longer die. Thinking back, he then remembers how much farce is the email changed Akihabara, and then sets out on a search to find out what she said and how you can averse it. He goes to the place where she is currently playing in the college game tournament. Once inside she sees him, grabbed his hand and pulls him along. Will run away from a group of men. She explains to him that she's being chased by a group of call game play. Is Hua pissed off about Lo Sing to A and A now trying to attack, basically the just a bunch of incels. They manage to escape far enough away, and could be tries to get the information about what kind of text you may dissent that would have prevented my way from being introduced. Aki bro, she doesn't really know what he's talking about, but tells him that she wants us to dad about opening a maid cafe in Akihabara. Okabe then Oscar, she's talking about the May Queen, and she asks him how he knew that she's not told anyone. Okabe explains that used to exist and mode in anime, used to be everywhere around here. I would and see the pharmacist self has some kind of reading Steiner ability to a lower extent. Okabe then takes it with a maid cafe. Used to be this jolts virus's memory of the previous world line and the email that she sent to and still getting, then catches up to them, who then proceed to beat up Bay, which is a small amount of pain compared oldest he's been through lately. Then they begin the takes hours away when Ferris's father arrives, saving them. Okabe train then learns that he had to sales IBM 5100 in order to pay the ransom for kidnapping, the farce of going through when she as younger later on first come to talk to today, letting him know about the Demelza he sent, that about 10 years ago her father got onto a plane which then crashed, and in order to prevent that, how do you mail that she sent was a fake ransom note, causing him to never board the plane in the RSD place. She however has now accepted the reality of the father's death, understanding that if she doesn't do this Mayor you will instead die. She then agrees to send another email cancelling out the previous one. Tony in Akihabara into the anime Wonderland 1 school, the IBM 5100 hell of a remains out of Oak Bay's reach. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. It only takes a second, and it really helps me out.